Hello everyone, this is Nicole. Thank you so much for joining me. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can easily watercolor a stamped images using dye inks. This is not a new technique that I have shared. This is just one of the refresher that you might want to check out in case you haven't done this for a while. And it is one of my favorite way to maximize the use of my dye inks that I already have on hand. I'm going to use a stamp set called Wallpaper Art, and this is a part of a brand new March 2019 release by Altenew. I'm stamping a couple of different flower and a cluster of leaf onto a Strathmore cold press 140-pound watercolor paper using a permanent black ink by Altenew. When you use this ink, this is a alcohol marker friendly and watercolor friendly as well. So once you stamp on it, you want to set it aside until the ink is fully set before you work on your projects. Today's project, I'm going to use one of the brand new ink colors that was released as well by Altenew. This is color family called Lapis Lazuli, and I'm going to probably butcher a couple of times until I fully get it, but it has a beautiful baby blue tone all the way to dark blue with purple hue in it, and it's just lovely blue colors. And if you already don't know, I am very partial to blue, so it's not surprising that this definitely caught my eye. So I smear those ink pad and smooshed onto a watercolor palette, and I'm going to use a water brush from Altenew by adding some clean water onto the barrel of the brush, and I am using that to be my watercoloring tool for today. You can use any traditional watercolor brushes that you have, as long as you just kind of clean the brush in between the shades. But these are basically all the same color hue, so it doesn't really matter unless you are going from dark to light. If that's the case, you definitely want to clean brushes in between. So I'm going to squeeze out the brush a little bit and get the clean water out of the barrel, and I'm going to mix in the inks that I smooshed onto the palette. This is a great way to use any water-based inks that you might have. And Altenew's Altenew's dye inks are great for watercoloring because they are already water-based, so you can get the watercolor look really easily without having to have another watercolor medium on your stash. So take out the dye inks that you have from Altenew and smoosh it onto a palette or sleek surface, and you can try watercoloring with it. And you actually don't need all three shades if you are comfortable controlling the light to dark shading method when you're doing the watercoloring. But I just took out 3 colors just to make it easier for those who are new to watercoloring with dye inks. The Altenew's watercolor, I keep saying watercolors, I'm sorry. The Altenew's dye inks come in 4 different shades, so you can easily start with the lighter one and then move on to the darker one to create a shading look with watercoloring technique. So I am just simply adding a very light wash onto each petal of this first flower that I am coloring, and after that I'm going to go back to that petal that I pre-wet with light wash using a medium and a 3rd darker shade from the color family. So I believe this is Iceberg, Eastern Sky, and Ultramarine, if I'm correct. So those are the 3 colors that I decided to use from this color family. And the trick is, after doing one petal, you want to kind of skip over and do every other petal so that it doesn't kind of smoosh and get all fuzzed out when you are using a watercoloring technique with lots of water. And I highly recommend, when doing this technique, to use a good watercolor paper. If you use a cheap watercolor paper, when you're working with a lot of water, it will definitely peel off and your beautifully colored projects will not shine with its true value. So make sure to use a good watercolor paper. The Strathmore watercolor paper are very affordable. It's a great one to begin with. So I love using this for my card making projects. If you want to do a little bit more upgrade, you can definitely go with Arches cold press, one of my favorite watercolor paper to work with. So it all depends, but I definitely recommend not to use a cheap watercolor paper, especially if you're not practicing and you're actually working on a project. So I am almost done coloring these, and I love the monochromatic look of this watercoloring. I'm only going to show you this part of the flower. That way you don't have to watch the whole watercolor that I've done for the other two flowers that I've stamped, but the technique that I'm using is exactly the same. And keep this in mind when watercoloring, that it'll always dry lighter than what it looks like when it's wet. And you can always start light to dark, so make sure to start with the lightest shade, go back to the project to add some intensity if you would like, rather than starting right away from the dark shade. That way it's just easier for you to blend things in and adding shading and intensity and the blending that you want to get from the project. So after coloring all three flowers, I'm moving on to the leaf cluster, and I chose this green shade called Fresh Leaf from Spring Bouquet 6 mini cube set, which is also brand new. This 6 mini cube set is not a duplicate from the existing colors. Unlike any other 6 mini cubes that Altenew already has, those were selected from the existing colors. So you will get some duplicate if you get those. However, for this 6 mini cube one, you definitely want to get it because they are not duplicates. And this green is just really lovely green that is bright and very vibrant, and you're just going to love working with this when you're working on projects with lots of foliage. So I'm just adding light shade first and then going back to the image with the same color, just adding more darkness to it by just going over layer to layer. And that pretty much finishes it. I'm going to swipe my brush onto a watercolor paper by squeezing out clean water, and that's how you clean the water brush. And then I wipe the palette with some clean tissue. And I'm going to die cut these once they are fully dry. I love air drying my watercolor projects because it just has a really natural dry look to it. But if you're in a hurry, you can definitely use heat gun to speed up the process. I'm going to run this through my Gemini and set that aside. I'm going to add one more. This is a solid leaf image from the Wallpaper Art Stamp Set. I'm going to stamp this in a fresh leaf color again to kind of match the leaf cluster that we colored, and die cut that out. Now I'm going to add some dimensions and some glue tapes and put these together on top of my card base. My card base is 110-pound Neenah Solar White cardstock, and I cut it to be 4 1/4 by 11 and scored at 5 1/2 so that it creates a top folding A2 size card. And I am going to just be a little bit more creative and cut out the stemmed leaf cluster image right here. I'm going to create a smaller foliage images and elements that to be created for floral arrangements for my card. So I'm adding beads of pieces and cut out divided leaf clusters here and there, and create a nice floral arrangements for my focal point. I wanted to add a bit of shine onto today's card. So I had a scrap paper underneath my card, and I am going to use antique gold water-based ink shimmer spray, and I'm going to take out the mist. Make sure you shake it really well. I'm going to take out those nozzle and just tap it over the card using my finger, and that is going to create a nice splatter look. I intentionally did this over the flowers because I wanted those shine splatter just a little bit over on those flowers. So you can definitely use less amount and control the way you want the splatters to go, but I want it to be kind of all over to add some nice contrast to our blue colored flowers. I stamped the sentiment from Stained Glass Stamp Set called Birthday Wishes, and I heat set that using a embossing powder on a jet black cardstock, and I'm going to add a strip of greeting onto the top right corner of the card. And that finishes the card for today. I hope you enjoyed today's card. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment below in the video or on my blog post. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up and hit subscribe if you're new to my channel. Your comments mean a lot to me, so thank you for watching and thank you for leaving the comments beforehand. And also, if you're interested in any of the product that I use in today's projects, make sure to check out the description link below and up on my blog where there's full supply list as well at scrapsandstamps.com. Thank you so much, and I will catch you next time. Have a great day. Bye-bye.